The Coast Guard has new icebreakers in the works to help patrol the Arctic region. Right now, it only has two, and one of them isn't operational. Russia and China are both staking claims in the Arctic. Rebecca Hersman is the director of the Project on Nuclear Issues and the senior advisor of the International Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thanks for being here, Rebecca. Tell us about what's changing in the Arctic, particularly geographically and climate-wise.
Absolutely. Well, the Arctic is really transforming right before our eyes. It's in growing strategic importance. It is a focus for Russia and its modernization of its nuclear forces and where the preponderance of its forces and its nuclear forces are located. It's critically important to many of our allies in NATO and those that are partners in terms of their access and control in the far north. And for the United States, while we may not have the same level of investment in the Arctic and the same level of military presence that the Russians do, we do have critically important assets there in terms of our early warning systems. And the Arctic has always provided a really important zone of strategic depth for us. And as things creep closer, that may be more difficult.
You've also written about China's role in this region and some positioning they're doing. What are you seeing there?
Well, I think China doesn't really want to be left out of any zone of critical importance, including one like the Arctic, and wants to be a player, wants to consider itself, I think, a near Arctic player. That's in part because of the critical economic resources that are located there, the rare earth metals that are very important to Chinese industry and a lot of their high-tech industry. And also, I think, their sense of competition at the geopolitical level, both with Russia and with the United States.
You talked a little bit about the resources that the U.S. military and the U.S. already has in the area. Are we seeing an effort by the U.S. government to build up those resources? And do you think that they need to take those steps?
Well, I think this is going to be really challenging for the United States, right? There's no way we can directly compete with Russia in terms of investment and military location in the Arctic, and nor would we want to. That would just be escalatory and would spend us right into the ground. So the question is, what sort of strategic investments do we need to make sure we take care of, both on the military side, but also in terms of our political and economic investment? So I think when we look at that, we've got to really think about how do we preserve a sense of strategic depth across the high north. That involves a lot of our warning, early warning systems, radar systems that are really going to have to be stabilized. They are very much threatened by climate change, and we are going to have to get on top of that. And while we'll never have a kind of military presence the way the Russians would, we will need to make sure we maintain some access and some mobility there, the ability to be responsive. And I think the final thing is we need to, especially in, I work on nuclear issues, we need to make sure we stand very squarely with our allies and partners in the region to make sure there's a culture of safety and nuclear safety. The Russians do a lot of their experiments. Some of these experiments with their new military systems have not gone very well and have been pretty dangerous. So making sure that we treat nuclear security and nuclear safety as an absolute critical priority in that region is essential.
You have a new report that makes some recommendations in this area. It sounds like you think that that partner effort is really key. Could you elaborate a little more on why that's so important for the U.S.?
Well, first of all, in the Arctic, there really is sort of a sense of collective and cooperative governance that occurs there. And we don't want to undermine that. That is a critical thing that has maintained the Arctic as a relatively safe and peaceful zone for many decades. So we need to encourage that. How does that work? Well, by working with the same partners that have been there, whether it's our Nordic partners, the Canadians, and others, to make sure we're engaging collaboratively, not confrontationally in the region. If we do that, I think we'll be able to meet most of our interests, protect the interests of our partners and allies, but be less, doesn't require us to be provocative or escalatory in the region, which serves no one's interest.
It sounds like it's a really interesting area, partly because some of the challenges there are, related to other countries, and some are a result of climate change and sort of things that no one can control, right? At least not as directly. What do you think kind of the the Biden administration needs to do? Is the U.S. government putting enough focus on this area?
Well, I do think we are. There have been so many report after report after report, right, about Arctic policy. But it's not clear to me how many of those reports have really been executed. We're going to have to do it. I would highlight that this look at the Arctic also corresponds with a very important effort, for example, to modernize our nuclear command and control systems. So those things are going to have to be aligned. The challenges of protecting and sustaining our radar systems are going to have to be moved up. And so it will be a priority. And the thing is, I think for a long time, the Arctic was sort of seen strategically a lot of the same ways that, Americans think of, the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, a source of strategic depth that protects us. Well, as climate change brings everyone closer together, increases the transportation through those areas, and heightens the sense of both risk and priority for other countries, we're going to have to, kind of refocus there and not sort of see it as a safe place to ignore. And I think that'll be kind of what has to drive our policy.
And with just 30 seconds to go, it sounds like this is not just one agency's problem. Are you looking to see some intergovernment work here?
I do think it will be important to have a strong White House voice on this. There's no one department with this job. It's not just DOD. It's not just the other sort of domestic agencies. And it's a critical, as I said, foreign affairs responsibility for the State Department as well. But I think what we need is that driving set of priorities that need to come from the White House, be set for those departments and agencies, and put them to work. And then we've got to take those tough questions in the budget and align them there. And we know that's where the rubber often meets the road.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.